Hi everybody, welcome to the Reading Corner. Today I'm going to read this book called Who Was Thomas Jefferson? Who was Thomas Jefferson? Thomas Jefferson is pictured on the U.S. nickels. He's also portrayed on the giant Mount Rushmore sculpture in South Dakota. The Jefferson Memorial is a popular landmark in Washington, D.C. Jefferson City, Missouri, and Mount Jefferson in Oregon are among the many places named for him. As you can see, this is the Jefferson Memorial and the nickel. Sorry, I'm looking at the camera. Oh. Why is Thomas Jefferson honored in all these ways? He wrote the Declaration of Independence. This paper announced the birth of the United States in 1776. Its stirring words, such as all men are created equal, have inspired people for more than 225 years. Jefferson was a giant in many fields, a great statesman. He was our third president. That's good. A gifted architect, he designed Virginia State House and the University of Virginia campus. People called him Mr. Mammoth because he collected prehistoric bones. Sorry, one sec. His book collection became the core of the Library of Congress. Despite his many public triumphs, Jefferson's private life was often sad. His wife, Martha, died at the age of only 33. Only 2 of Thomas and Martha's 6 children, lived to adulthood. That's so sad. Jefferson also felt guilty that he didn't live by his own words. The man who wrote all men are created equal owned hundreds of slaves. Oh, where am I? Yeah, that's right. And toward the end of his life, the former president landed deeply in debt. This is the true story of a man with many sides, Thomas Jefferson. This is the Declaration of Independence. Hope you know that. Chapter 1. Tall Tom. Thomas Jefferson was born in 1743 on his family's plantation, Shadwell, in central Virginia. Virginia was one of the 13 colonies belonging to Great Britain. By the calendar used then, his birthday was April 2nd. By today's calendar, his birthday is April 13th. Tom became the third in a family of 10 children. 2 of the children didn't survive infancy, so Tom grew up with 2 older sisters, 4 younger sisters, and a younger brother. The babies of the family, Anna and Randolph, were twins. Little is known about Tom's mother, Jane Randolph Jefferson. Far more is known about his father, Peter Jefferson, was a prosperous farmer who owned dozens of slaves. And as you can see, the 13 colonies I'm showing you again. 13 colonies. I hope I'm showing it right. Yeah, 13. He was also a surveyor, a person who measures land boundaries. In addition, he served in Virginia's Leicesters. Young Tom thought his father was the smartest, and the strongest man on earth. It It was once said that Peter Jefferson raised 2 barrels of tobacco that had been lying on their side to an upright position. Man, that's heavy. Each barrel was said to weigh nearly 1,000 pounds. He also loved books and read Shakespeare and other authors in spare time. Tom had cousins named Randolph who lived in Eastern Virginia. Mr. and Mrs. Randolph died. I'm going to continue in a moment. But first I want to show you the picture. As you can see the tobacco and all. Then this map or something. Mr. and Mrs. Randolph died within a few years of each other. That's sad. Pretty sad. After that, Tom's parents helped raise the 3 Randolph children. Tom's first memory was moving to his cousin's home, about 50 miles away. When he was 2, for much of his childhood, Tom went back and forth between the 2 places. Sometimes he was home at Shadwell. Other times he and his family were at Tuckahoe, whatever that is, the Randolph estate. Oh, that's what it is, sorry. In a way, Tom had the best of 2 worlds. At Shadwell, which stood at the edge of the wilderness, his father taught him to ride, swim, fish, and hunt. In Eastern Virginia, Tom went to dances and learned to dress and behave like an English gentleman. But he apparently didn't get along with his Randolph cousins. The boy cousin, also named Tom, was 2 years older and seemed to have bullied him. When Tom Jefferson was 9, someone else took charge of his cousins. Most of the Jefferson family returned to Shadwell, but to his disappointment, and this is the picture. So you can see not getting along, or I think that was the English, or no, that's not getting along. And then moving place to place. Okay, but to his disappointment, when his family went home in 1752, Tom was sent to study with Reverend William Douglas near Tuckahoe, the place. Reverend Douglas taught Tom Latin, Greek, and French. Tom studied and lived with Reverend Douglas for 5 years. The only time he returned to Shadwell was for vacations, although his schoolwork often bored him. Tom liked to read on his own. He became so wrapped up in books that sometimes he read for 15 hours straight. Young Tom also loved music. He practiced his violin 3 hours a day. By age 13, Tom was tall, thin, red-headed boy. One sec. With freckles. He was well on his way to his full height of 6 feet 2 inches in an age when the average man stood 5 feet 6 inches tall. Tom was also a giant. His nickname was Tall Tom. Tom was home for the summer of 1757, not 1957, when his father became ill. This is that guy teaching him, Reverend Douglas, and then this is his violin practice. This is him, Tall Tom, 6 feet and all, like that. Peter Jefferson died that August. 14-year-old Tom was crushed. to lose his father and hero. As the oldest son, Tom inherited much of his father's estate, including about 2,500 acres of land and about 30 slaves, but he wasn't to receive the bulk of inheritance until he turned 21. Peter Jefferson had wanted Tom to go to college. To prepare for it, Tom lived and studied with another minister for 2 more years. He didn't much like this teacher either, but at least he was now close enough to Shadwell to spend weekends at home. By 1760, Tall Tom was 16 years old and eager to begin college. That is chapter 1, and I'm sorry to say bye. Chapter 2 is Tall Tom in Love. See you next time.